What's up, everybody? What's up, everybody? It's your boy Chris. It's your boy Chris. Haha. It's always nice talking to my audience, going live with you guys, and essentially answering any financial questions that you have for free, opposite here on Financipation. So in this channel, everybody, I like teaching you how to make money, how to save money, how to invest money, how to build generational wealth, and most importantly, how to financially emancipate yourself from generational poverty. And that's what we talk about here on Financipation. That's what we talk about here on Financipation. Okay. So when I first started my channel, I wanted to be a little different from a lot of these other financial YouTubers out here who pretty much only talk about, like, let's say Forex, crypto, stock market investing, real estate, trading, day trading, all that kind of stuff. I wanted to basically talk about the entire, I would say, conglomeration, if you will, of how to build wealth. And one of the things I find that's actually kind of interesting is that if you actually take a look at the way finance operates, there are a lot of things that exist today that did not exist back in the day when, like, Grandpa Dave and Grant Cardone essentially were out here doing their thing and trying to make their money. And the things that exist today when it comes to finance, to some extent, are very different. And I'm not just talking about things like cryptocurrency. I'm not just talking about things like index funds. I'm not talking about things like AI, artificial intelligence, things like that, or ChatGPT. There are some things that used to define the middle class that just flat out do not anymore. And I think that's one of the reasons why, when I first started this channel, I wanted to have a channel that was very different from a lot of other cats, because it's a little weird hearing, no offense, from a 70-year-old white guy or a 75-year-old black dude or an 80-year-old Latin guy about how to make money, how to build wealth, when the person literally did not have Facebook or social media until they were 50. Think about that for a minute. So I've always kind of thought that one of the good things about younger people essentially kind of getting into this YouTube space, into this financial content creation space, is that it hits a little different when the people who are teaching you essentially how to become millionaires were the same type of cats who basically had to grow up in this crazy economic tariff inflation that we live in, who had to go through essentially the Great Recession of 2008, who essentially had to go through COVID, or they graduated from college during the height of COVID, or they were unable to graduate from their high schools because of what was going on kind of with the pandemic. It hits a little different when a person who kind of, quote unquote, looks like you, or they're kind of to some extent your age group, is essentially teaching you how to build wealth versus, like I say, no offense to the Dave Ramsey's of the world out there, the older guys out there, the people that are 70 and basically essentially trying to tell you how to build wealth. I've always found it interesting when a guy who paid $5,000 for college and paid basically $50,000 for his first house is trying to tell millennials and Gen Zers the cost of college doesn't matter. So in a lot of ways, there are certain things that do translate extremely well as the generations go, such as investing early into the stock market, such as spending less money than you make, such as not having a lot of high interest credit card debt. I don't care whether you're 90 or whether you're 10. That is very good financial advice for anyone to follow. But there's certain things I find that to some extent are no longer relevant a little bit. And that's what we're going to talk about tonight, everybody. And I want to specifically talk about things that no longer define the middle class. And the reason why I want to bring this up is because if you were taking your financial advice from an individual who essentially did it a certain way in the 60s and the 70s, we live in it's 2025 today. Some of the advice that they're giving you may or may not be relevant to this day. So the first thing that no longer defines the middle class, but it used to, is owning a home. Now, this is one of those things that is extremely controversial depending on who you talk to, because at one point in American history, home ownership was literally the foundational building block for building wealth. And that's actually one reason why during certain periods of American history, whether it was slavery, whether it was Jim Crow, whether it was the Asian internment camps during World War II, while certain groups specifically went out of the way to make it impossible for certain groups who were minorities to buy property or buy housing, or if they had property or they had housing, the federal government would essentially green light people basically putting freeways directly through the middle of where the quote unquote black areas were the city, or where the quote unquote most affluent Asian or Latino areas were the city. And as a result, it killed the housing value. So essentially, if you were a minority who bought a house, let's say like in the 1930s in let's just say Oklahoma City, or in West Philadelphia or places like that, there's a very good possibility that your housing value appreciated significantly slower than certain other communities who also bought houses in the 1930s, because the federal government decided to run a highway directly through the middle of where this affluent neighborhood was at. This happened in Overtown, this happened in Liberty City, this happened in West Philadelphia, this happened in East Indianapolis, and a lot of other places. But before I digress too much, at the end of the day, everybody, home ownership does not quote unquote mean exactly what it used to. And this is the reason why I say that. Back in the day, once again, when the cost of living and the housing and inflation markets, things were kind of a lot more stable, owning a home made a lot more sense. Why? Because at that particular period of life, you could literally be a single guy or a married man on one income with about 6 or 7 kids and basically buy 2 cars and have a 4 or 5 bedroom home. Today, in order to have and maintain that lifestyle, you would need to make about $350 to $400,000 a year in any major metropolitan city to essentially have a 4 or 5 bedroom house, no debt, be raising 5 or 6 kids, and have 2 cars. So the cost of living has not, I'm sorry, the cost of income has not increased the same thing as the cost of home ownership. Another reason why, so as a result, wages are stagnant today. So that's one reason why homes are no longer quote unquote the land of milk and honey that they used to be. Another issue too about owning homes and things of that nature. In the event that you do own a home, right? There's things called HOAs. There's things called home maintenance. There's things called repairs. There's also things called tenants that don't pay. So as a result of that, if you live in a home and you don't, and this home is not essentially an income generating asset, i.e., your mortgage is $3,000 a month, but you're getting about $4 or $5,000 a month off of residual income from your tenants that live there, a home is not is not an asset; it's a liability. And whenever I say that kind of thing, typically I kind of get in arguments with a lot of people who say that. But typically the people I argue with, they are significantly older than me. They're not the young that are younger, because younger millennials and Gen Zers realize that as good as it is to have a home, and I am pro home ownership. Don't get it twisted. I do believe that owning a home is very important in the event ish hits the fan. You need somewhere to stay, but it's not what it used to be, because the cost of living has stagnated, but the cost of cost of income has stagnated, but the amount of money that homes cost has skyrocketed. The average home in America right now costs over $475,000, and the average American income in America right now is less than $55,000. For comparison's sake, back in the 1980s, when our good buddy Dave Ramsey was doing this thing, the average home cost about $40,000, but the average American made about $25,000. That would be the equivalent today of a home costing $100,000 all across America. So home ownership, as I stated earlier, is not exactly what it used to be. Third, according to the Case-Shiller and the U.S. National Homes Price Index, the average home in America only has a return on investment of about 5%. Now, why is that important? Because one of the biggest, I don't want to say myths, one of the biggest things I know we were always told about home ownership is that it is a great investment because it appreciates in value. And typically speaking, yes, I do agree with that. Homes typically are a good investment because 5% is not bad. I actually get about 5% for one of my high interest accounts. But this is where it gets kind of weird, right? So let's say you put $100,000 down for a home that costs $500,000. When you do that, that home is only going to appreciate about 5% over the next, let's say, 25 or 40 years. If you put that same $100,000 into a good total stock market index fund or a good ETF that tracks the total stock market, on average, it's going to give you about 12%. In other words, home ownership only gives you a 5% return on your investment, and you got to pay HOA fees, you got to pay property taxes, you got to basically do the maintenance on it, and on top of it, you also have to deal with ignorant neighbors sometimes. But if you put that same $100,000 into an index fund or to an ETF or into a real estate investment trust that returns about 10 to 12%, literally you are getting 250 times more money than you would by owning that home. Now, this is one of those kind of things that when you kind of sit back and think about it, it makes you kind of start to really think about this home ownership thing a little bit differently, because that's not what we were taught. We were taught basically growing up that it makes a lot more sense to not rent an apartment or not rent a home, and to instead put all your money into a house and just let the thing appreciate. And to some extent, there is intelligence in doing that. But when you purely look at it from an investment standpoint, to some extent, it can make more money, and also can make more sense if you instead put that down payment into the stock market and just let it grow. And additionally, with the stock market, as long as you don't sell your assets, you don't pay the difference between the capital gains that you make versus when you bought it, you don't pay any taxes on it. Another thing as well with the stock market, you don't have to worry about it burning down. You don't have to worry about it here in Florida. You don't have to worry about essentially hurricane proofing it. You don't have to worry about hurricane insurance. You have to worry, if you're in California, you have to worry about earthquake insurance and things like that. In the stock market, you don't have to worry about that stuff. But with a home, you do. So, home ownership. People always ask me, should you buy a home or should you not buy a home? And yes, and I do think that at some point in your financial journey, you absolutely should buy a home. But once again, everybody, from 1972 to 2022, for that 50-year period, the average home has only returned about 4.6%. But the real estate investment trust, exchange traded funds, and index funds have returned once again about 12%. So just keep that in mind essentially as you're going through and doing that. Oh, thank you. I appreciate that, Esther Paul. Thank you. Thank you. By the way, everybody, please Support your YouTubers, support your financial your financial content creators because it helps our families, and I appreciate that. My Cash App is Chris P 485, and please hit the super chat button below as well. So thank you, Esther Paul. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you. Another good thing too about you get go into a real estate investment trust, as I stated earlier, with the stock market, you don't have to worry about HOAs. You don't have to worry about essentially home maintenance. You don't have to worry about people breaking into your homes. You don't have to worry about potentially buying firearms to defend yourself with a stock market, but with a home that you do. Another thing too, the housing market goes up and it goes down. So because of that, there's a certain level of uncertainty to some extent when it comes to home ownership. Right now, because of all the deportations that are going on, the cost of residential housing is increasing, and I don't see that going down anytime soon. Why? Because the labor force that builds homes is changing. I'll say it that way to be politically correct. But with the stock market, it does not. The last thing I'll say about this, about things no longer defining the first thing that used to define the middle class being owning a home, I will say this. I do think at some point in your life you should buy a house. And I say that for a variety of reasons. There's a certain level of stability that comes to people who own homes. There's a certain level of community that you get by owning a home. And I also think that one of the issues in America right now is that we're not pushing family and community the way that we can. I will say this about owning a home. Generally speaking, people who own homes, particularly if this is the best of everybody, it builds a community that is relatively good for that neighborhood. And good neighborhoods build good cities build good states, and good states build good countries and stuff like that. So I'm not anti-home ownership. I'm just saying if you buy a home, is this going to be a rental property where you're basically renting out to people and it's a passive income generating source, or active income generating source rather, that's making you money every month? Or is it a liability where you just live in it and pay your rent off every month, pay your mortgage off every month, and it's the only money you're getting is equity? So just kind of keep that in mind, everybody, as you are owning your home, because in my opinion, the first thing that used to define the middle class that no longer does is home ownership. Next, the second thing that used to define the middle class but no longer does, everybody, is is leasing or buying a brand new car. Now, this is one of the things that's really, really interesting to me because I'm flat out shocked that I still meet Americans that lease cars. I mean, I thought that went out like in the 90s with like Tupac and Biggie and like Suge Knight and all them dudes. Like, to be real with you, if you were still if you were still leasing cars in 2025, God bless you. That's all I'm gonna say. I'm gonna keep it real with you. Like, that is literally one of the worst things you can do. At least if you buy a brand new car, if you pay that thing off within 4 years, you can possibly drive it for another you can possibly drive it for another 7 to 10 years if you take good care of it. But with leasing a vehicle, you are literally continually putting a lot of interest in a depreciating asset. So leasing cars might literally be the dumbest thing that you can do. Now I've heard people say, okay, you get the mileage thing, you get a brand new car every 2 to 3 years. I mean, no, it doesn't make any sense. Everybody, don't lease a car. I'll just say it like that. Okay, I'm not. I don't think in terms of absolutes with almost anything in life, and I definitely don't think in terms of absolutes with finance, because to me, everybody's journey to some extent is a little different. But outside of being a business owner, and then there's better ways you can do even doing that, I can't think of a single good reason to lease a car. I'm just gonna keep it completely real with you, okay? So don't do that. Another thing that's very dumb is buying brand new cars. Now, full disclosure, when I started Financipation, one reason why I started this channel, in addition to my academic pedigree, I have an MBA, in addition to my work ethic, in addition to the fact that I was basically helping people build their wealth for 20 years prior to starting this channel, I made most of the mistakes that I tell you guys not to make. Now, some people could call that being hypocritical. I personally think it's like this. Do you want to learn from the person who actually lived it, or do you want to learn from the person who just read about it in a book? I did it all. So as a result of that, I was that guy that was buying brand new cars. As a single dude, in certain cities that I lived in, I was driving brand new sports cars, two doors, all that kind of stuff. And it was the dumbest thing that I've done financially probably in my life, for one very simple reason. When you buy a brand new car, literally like 35% of the value of the car tanks the second you drive it off the lot. I had a situation where I basically had just bought a brand new sports car. I drove it off the lot. A cop pulled me over. I got a ticket essentially for driving a very nice car in a very nice neighborhood. I'll say it that way to be politically correct. And when I actually looked at the MSRP value for this particular vehicle, it had literally dropped 27% from the day that I essentially drove it off the lot to the day that I basically went to court. Now I basically fought this particular ticket because I thought it was fraudulent. 27%, everybody, in less than 3 days. So as a result of that, I always tell people it makes literally no sense to buy a brand new car. It is literally, everybody, like Driving down is literally like driving your car or whatever, right? You buy a brand new vehicle, rolling the window down, and letting a $100 bill out every weekend, every Friday night. That's what it's like essentially when you buy a brand new car. It is much smarter to be the part. It is much smarter to buy cars whether I buy them now, which you let some other moron basically buy the brand new car, and when that car essentially gets repossessed or they have to basically trade it back in, you basically buy a used car with about 5 or 10,000 miles on it. By then, the value has already plummeted about 27 to 35%, and you let the first gullible person, the first gullible simp, essentially, basically pay off the first portion of the car, and you essentially enjoy driving the exact same vehicle that's basically only about 4 or 5. That's basically about 10 to 15% less. Now, I always say everybody likes that brand new car smell. They like the smell of the new carcinogenic glues. That's essentially what you're smelling. They love the new paint and all that kind of stuff. They love the fact it's a virgin. No one's ever been essentially inside the vehicle. They love all that stuff. And I get it. I did the same thing. But herein lies the problem. That new car smell that you were smelling is literally money that you were burning, essentially. So don't buy brand new cars, okay? The biggest and dumbest financial mistakes that I could probably say that I occurred in my life was I bought essentially too many new cars. And when I say too many new cars, I bought 3 new cars. Don't do that. Literally buy a used car and keep it moving. And that is the second thing. The second thing that used to define the middle class is people leasing cars or basically buying brand new cars. It no longer defines that. Another thing as well, over 75% of America's population lives in cities, whether it's the suburb cities or whether it's an urban inner city or urban environment. They live in cities. So as a result of that, there's this thing called Uber, and there's also a miraculous thing. There's also this other thing called Lyft. If you get Uber and Lyft, it is actually over the course of time. They've done studies about this. It is almost cheaper to use Uber and Lyft depending on where you everywhere you go instead of actually buying a vehicle. And the thing about it with Uber and Lyft, you don't have to worry about gas, you don't have to worry about maintenance, you don't have to worry about your car getting broken into. And if you live in an urban environment, you can also take things like the city bus, you can take things like the subway. If you like the Chicagos, the New Yorks, the DCs, the LAs, and places like that. If you live in a city like Miami that has great weather year round, you can pretty much ride your bike anywhere that you want to go. And I say it to say this: owning a vehicle in 2025 is not nearly as important as it used to be. And if you can kind of get around it, that's just one less expense essentially that's can take money out of your pocket. So that's something else I always tell people: if you don't have to have a vehicle, is it really worth it to get one? As I stated earlier, there are certain things that used to define the middle class. Owning a car is one of them, and leasing a vehicle, which you should never do, is also something that no longer defines the middle class. Because at one crazy point, I remember in the 90s, it was actually considered what sophisticated people did. If you had money and wanted to get girls, you leased the car. And on top of that as well, buying a brand new car is something that also used to define the middle class, and it no longer does. The third thing that used to define the middle class, but it no longer does, is getting an expensive but a useless college degree. So before I go any further, everybody, please subscribe to my channel, Financipation. I thoroughly enjoy giving you guys free content. Also, please hit that super chat button. Please support your content creators. And by all means, everybody, please fire away the questions. Okay, I love answering any questions that you guys ask me. And please support your financial content creators. Okay, support us. So, getting a useless college degree. Full disclosure: I'm a mechanical engineer. I've basically been a practicing engineer for almost 20 years. I build billion-dollar projects for the federal government and for private developers, and I also have an MBA, and I've taught finance for over 20 years. So I very clearly went the academic route, and I've also went the entrepreneurial route. So I am not, nor will I ever be, one of these guys that says college is useless, you should never go to college. I'm not that type. I'm not the type of dude. In my personal opinion, when a black and a Latin guy gets educated and a Hispanic guy, an Asian gentleman gets a college degree, we are the only group of people who get paid the same amount as white men for having the exact same for doing the exact same job with a master's degree or above. So if you are a minority listening to this channel, get a master's degree or a PhD, and statistically speaking, we are the only ones that get paid the same as white men for essentially doing the exact same job. And if you're a white guy who is getting a master's degree, perfect, good job, keep up the good work. Because us people with master's degrees, we typically, on average, make about $5 million more than people that only have a high school diploma. And for my people who have PhDs, they make about $7 million more than people that only have a GED. So college is important. It just depends on what major that you major in. So what do I mean by that? One of the things I always hear from a lot of, unfortunately, financial content creators is that people who go that college is useless and that you should brag about having a 1.8 GPA and being incompetent in school, and people that make B's work for people that make C's, and people that make A's, they get fired first, all that kind of, because they have no social skills. I hear this garbage all the time. So what I'll say about it is this. There are a few good things I say about college. One is that when you get a college degree, it proves that you know how to learn, particularly if you get a college degree in certain majors such as science, technology, engineering, mathematics, healthcare, law, or finance. Another good thing too about college is that not only does it teach you essentially how to, not only does it teach you how to learn, it shows you that you can be taught. Another thing I like about college as well is that when it boils down to it, it shows that you can finish something. And that says a lot when it comes to whether it's finance or whether it's essentially your career. So, college degrees, which ones should you get? Because this is a question I typically always get asked as far as whether I am pro college or I'm anti college. I'm pro getting degrees that basically matter in the 21st century. Simple as that. And those degrees overwhelmingly happen to be in science, in technology, in engineering, in mathematics, in healthcare, in law, and in finance. If you get a degree in those 7 fields, once again, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, healthcare, law, or finance, I don't care what color you are. I don't care what God you pray to. I don't care what religious affiliation you have. I don't care what you look like. You are going to have a job, and you are going to, more importantly, have a great career. And the numbers spell that out. The average engineer in America makes $100,000 a year. The average lawyer in America makes $90,000 a year. The average medical doctor makes $175,000 a year. The average mathematician, particularly if you're an actuarial mathematician, makes $150,000 a year. The average nurse makes $85,000 a year. And the average financial advisor, a financial professional, makes $125,000 a year. Oh, and by the way, just so you know, the unemployment rate right now in America under Donald Trump is about 4.4%. So let's say it's 4.5%, just keep the math easy. The average unemployment rate for a person with a degree in science and technology, and engineering and math, and healthcare, law, and finance is 1.5%. In other words, the unemployment rate for my engineers, for my lawyers, for my doctors, for my nurses, for my mathematicians, for my scientists, and for my technology majors is literally 3 times lower than it is for everyone else in America. And what's crazy is that 4.5% is a little slanted, because that's also taking into account the individuals that got GEDs and never even graduated from high school. In other words, if you are a college educated person, particularly in the right majors, you make literally 3 to 4 times more money than the average American, and your unemployment rate is 3 times lower. So when I say that one of the things that used to define the middle class is having a college degree, I am not saying that you should not get a college degree. What I'm saying is you should get a degree in the right fields. And those fields, once again, are science, technology, engineering, mathematics, healthcare, law, or finance. Now, having said that, back in the day, and I don't know, it's like the 80s or the 90s and the 70s and stuff like that, literally you could have a college degree in like art history or humanities or something like that, and it automatically puts you above another person, particularly if you looked a certain way. That is no longer the case in America. In fact, I'm gonna be real with you. If you spend $150,000 to get a degree in basket weaving or German polka dot history or basically painting artwork on top of a cake, then I hate to say it, but you basically wasted your money. And on top of that, what's saddest part about it is that those student loans, Sally Mae, she is a cruel mistress. I know because I've had her. So you do not want to get a useless college major. And I'm not going to be disrespectful and say what I consider useless college majors, but I will say this. If you get a degree in the STEM fields, which are the ones I was talking about earlier, that ain't useless. You'll always have a career. But it used to be at one point in time where defining the middle class meant sending your kids to college. And nowadays, thankfully, we have evolved to a point where the middle class is now saying, okay, college is cool, but if my son or my daughter does not want to get a degree in a 21st century college major, there's nothing wrong with sending them to trade school to learn how to be an electrician, a plumber, a carpenter. There's nothing wrong with sending my kid to the police academy or send my child to the Marines. And I'm 100% for that. I'm not, nor will I ever be one of these kind of engineering dudes that tries to badmouth blue collar. Real talk, I actually worked on a couple of roofs. I broke concrete. I did blue collar work for a couple of years of my life. I understand, and I got nothing but respect for all my blue collar dudes. But one of the things that used to define the middle class is sending your kids to college to get useless, expensive college majors. And I'm thankfully glad that people are kind of starting to change their entire mindset about college. So that's one. So the third thing that used to define the middle class, but that no longer does, everybody, is sending your kid to college to get a useless college major. Before I go any further, everybody, please subscribe to the channel. Also, I want you to hit that super chat, support your financial content creators, and ask questions, everybody. Ask questions. Please fire away. Please fire away. Ask questions. Ask questions. So the next thing that used to define the middle class, but no longer does, is working for a company that has that great pension plan. Unless you work for the U.S. military, you're a police officer, and maybe a political, like a House of Representatives or a U.S. senator. I honestly don't know of any legit true pensions that exist anymore. Even in the U.S. military, I don't know what it's like for the police, but even in the U.S. military, you get a certain percentage based off of what your rank was when you left, like 60%, 50%, 35%, and depending on disability status as well. So there are no true pensions that exist anymore. The days of my grandfather working at Chrysler for 40 years and then retiring with a great pension, that day has been over for decades and it ain't coming back, period. And that used to at one point define the middle class. To be exact, if you go to certain neighborhoods in Detroit, certain neighborhoods in Indianapolis, a lot of neighborhoods in Chicago, particularly like in the Midwest, places like that, it literally, the car manufacturing industry literally built the black middle class. It literally built the white middle class. And that era is over. Nowadays, if you want to build a factory, you don't put it in America. You put it in China, you put it in South America, you put it in Canada. I'm just being real with you. Free healthcare and all kind of other reasons why, and benefits and cheap labor. So pensions, everybody, are a thing of yesteryear. And it's interesting because there was a period at one point in time where people honestly said that get a good factory job, get a good government job, things like that, and your pension will be paid for. And that era, as I stated earlier, is over. What replaced it, however, is something that I always talk about on my channel, and it's the 401k, the Roth IRA, the HSA, and brokerage accounts. So, is it a good or a bad thing that pensions are no longer here? And what are my thoughts on that policy? I think pensions were bankrupting lots of companies because at the end of the day, if a guy retires at 60 and he dies at 100, you have to pay him 40 years essentially for not doing anything but breathing. I can see how that can be very detrimental to a company. So as a capitalist, I can see why pensions are gone. As a human being, though, I can also see how that deleteriously affected essentially certain individuals of the middle class. Because if you started off at a company with the idea that this is what my granddaddy got, this is what my dad got, and I'm working at this company as well, and I'm gonna get the same pension that they did, and then at 55 they basically pull the carpet underneath you, I can see how that can affect you. So I can understand essentially both sides of the aisle to the pension thing, but I'm also at the end of the day a realist, and they are not coming back. So as a result of that, if you watch anything on my channel, you know I am a firm believer in pushing the 3 or the 4 pillars, however you're going to look at it. I push people maxing out their 401k, at least as much as they can, or at least bare minimum investing up to the 401k match. I tell people you should max out your Roth IRA every year because it is literally free money. I apologize. It is a tax efficient account essentially that expands. And the compound interest builds up. And I also push the HSA, the health savings accounts. Why? Because there's literally a triple benefit in regards to the amount of benefits that you get from investing into it. And lastly, the brokerage account is arguably the greatest investment that's out there because at the end of the day, there is no income limit that goes with it. With the 401k, at the time I'm recording this, you can only put $23,500 into it. With the HSA, it's $4,150. It's $8,550 if you're married or filing jointly. And with the Roth IRA, it's $77,000 if you're under 50. It's $8,051 and above. So as a result of that, the thing that replaced the pensions once again are the 401k, the Roth IRA, the HSA, and the brokerage accounts. So you should be doing what you need to do to maximize your investments into those accounts. So if you are a 21-year-old person listening to my podcast, I want you to walk directly into the HR office's lady, whatever office you work for, and ask them straight up, do you have a 401k match? And if you do have a 401k, ask her or ask him, okay, what percentage of my 401k do you guys match? That's the first question you should ask. The second question you should ask, okay, do we have a Roth IRA through this company, or do I need to go to like Charles Schwab, Fidelity, or Vanguard to essentially get a Roth IRA? Because if they do not offer one at your company, let's say you work at a company that for whatever reason does not offer a Roth IRA, essentially make sure you start your own. And if you are a W-2 employee or you're an entrepreneur, you can do that. You should also find out whether they have a health savings account. If they have a health savings account, you can basically go into your high deductible accounts. You should do that because the HSA is arguably the best of all 3 tax efficient accounts. So that is essentially what replaced the American middle class. I'm sorry, that's essentially what replaced the pension. And at one point in time, the pensions used to define the middle class, but everybody, they no longer do. So just keep that in mind, okay? Next. Everybody, please, once again, my Cash App is $ChrisP485. Please support your boy. Please support Financipation. Please support all of our financial content creators and everything. Hit that super chat button. Also, fire your questions away. Ask your questions away. Okay, ask your questions away. I'm definitely willing on this particular platform to answer any question that you have. If I have to delve a little bit deeper into it, we can definitely book a one-on-one session and kind of go from there. So yeah, yeah. The next thing that used to define the middle class but no longer does is China sets. China. This is one of those things that was always a little interesting to me because as a little kid growing up, my grandmama had her good plate. She had them good dishes, and you only saw them pretty much 2 times a year, Christmas or Thanksgiving. Or if you grew up in a black household, whenever Grandpa hit the lottery. So that was when you saw the China. That's when your grandma brought the good gifts, and the good dishes. And the reason why is because the idea was you had to have your good dishes. So if good times happened, or you had a good Sunday dinner, or Thanksgiving or Christmas, you wanted to show your best. And it's kind of sad because I'm gonna be honest, with you, as a millennial, I don't know a single person my age that actually has any kind of China set. I mean, me and my wife, we just kick it with IKEA. To be real with you, we don't really do China. I mean, nothing wrong with it, but we don't. My parents, they have that China set that I see once again Christmas and Thanksgiving, but it no longer defines the middle class. And at one point, the little nice matching dishes and the little nice matching sets and all that kind of stuff, it was cool for what it was. But my generation, we just don't really do China anymore. And I think it's a kind of a generational thing because unlike some of the other things on this list, like by leasing cars or waiting for a pension and that kind of stuff, there is nothing inherently wrong with a China set outside the fact that it does cost a little bit more and it takes up space. And as millennials, that's something we are very cognizant of about taking up space and things costing a lot of money because we live just in a different kind of America. So for us, our good dishes are what we buy from IKEA. Simple as that. On another note, I will say this about the China sets and things like that. One of the things that was kind of cool about it, actually kind of does bring back good memories, was that it was kind of cool that once or twice a year there were dishes that kind of had, I guess, sentimental value because you could literally grab a plate that your grandmother handed you that you remember eating off of 25 years earlier. And that is lost now because, like I said, nobody does that. But it's one of the kind of things. People at one point thought taxis were the future, and then they thought the horse and carriage was outdated, and then I mean, made the horse and carriage outdated. And nowadays, no one drives taxis; everybody just does Uber. This is one of those natural evolution of things I think that kind of go on. And who knows? Maybe China will eventually at some point come back, but for our generation, that was something that used to define the American middle class, and it just flat out no longer does. Simple as that. The next thing that used to define the American middle class, but no longer does, everybody, is that nice, dope DVD collection. This is one of the things that's actually kind of interesting because I'm old enough to remember when everybody had DVDs. That was something. As crazy, it's kind of actually wild saying this, but as crazy as this sounds, I remember like coming home from parties in college and stuff like that, and going to different people's houses. You could actually kind of tell what a person was kind of like, just tell a lot about their personality based off of this mountain of rack of DVDs that was about as tall as I am. I'm 6'2". So imagine you walk into somebody's house, right, and they got a collection of DVDs that literally stretch from the ground, and it's on like a nice, expensive padded set and everything, and you can pretty much go through and just find the movies that they're into. And it sounds crazy today now with like Netflix and Chill and Redbox and all kind of stuff, and just Disney Plus and everything, and Amazon and Hulu. But literally, less than 20 years ago, we actually had DVDs that we would be watching and listening to. Like I said, I would see this from a lot of guys that just graduated from college or people that have money. So you could actually, it's kind of the same thing with CDs how they were. You can kind of tell a person's personality based on the CDs that they had. DVDs were the exact same way. And I will also say this. I do think to some extent with like all the streaming services that something is kind of lost a little bit about the magic of making movies because back in the day, you could buy, let's say you bought a movie like Black Hawk Down, for instance, or something like, or Rambo or something like that, or Predator. You could literally watch the DVD, and then it came with something called extras, right? And the extras, with the extras and everything with that, you could watch the making of the movie. You could have the extras interviewing what it was like working with the stars interviewing. If it was something like The Matrix, they would literally have different camera angles about how they were shooting the movie and stuff like that. And I'm honestly, sometimes watching the extras was better than actually watching the DVD itself because you're like, whoa, this is pretty cool how they made this. I don't know, maybe I'm nerding out right now, but that's just something that used to be with DVDs. That's no longer the case on Netflix. Why? Because you are never going to see on Netflix the making of, or you're never going to see Hulu the making of, or Disney Plus the making of. It just doesn't make any streaming sense because it costs money to do that kind of stuff and to show it to the masses, and it's taking money out of their pockets. So I do think something was lost to some extent from the fact that we have transitioned out of DVDs and into YouTube into HBO Plus, HBO Go, into Netflix and chill. I mean, something I think was kind of lost with that. But that used to actually define the middle class. And I'm old enough to remember when literally your DVD collection legit was a flex. And like I said, it's crazy kind of saying this stuff now because it sounds ridiculous to say it, but it's the truth. Before I go any further, everybody, once again, please support your boy, Super Chat, hit that button and everything. I thoroughly enjoy just kind of going through just different things about finance and stuff like that on the channel. Teach you how to make money, how to save money, how to invest money, and things like that nature. Another cool thing I also too like before I go to the next point that I also liked about the DVDs is that to some extent it actually was cheaper back then. Like the purpose of streaming was for two purposes. One, it was cheaper than cable because cable was like $125 like in the 1980s and 1990s. Think about that with inflation nowadays. So it was cheaper than cable, and on top of that, in theory you never saw commercials, and on top of that, in theory, you only got to watch stuff that you actually wanted to see. So back in the day, that was the original. That was the original appeal of stuff like Netflix, HBO Go, and Disney Plus. Nowadays, because only one show you want to watch is on Disney Plus, only one show you want to watch is on Hulu, only one show you want to watch is only one movie you want to watch is on Netflix. You got to basically buy so many stupid subscriptions that it's actually costs more than cable. That's one thing I'm kind of noticing is happening. However, if you are a Financipation listener and you kind of roll the way that I roll in regards to building generational wealth, you might have one or two streaming platforms at most, and then keep it moving. For me, eventually it's just gonna be YouTube TV because I like sports. I probably will keep Disney Plus for my kids, but that's a whole other story. But I kind of do miss the DVD days to some extent, just because it was kind of cool seeing a behind the scenes look with movies. Something has been kind of lost, I think, a little bit with streaming. But let's be real with you, no one's ever going back to basically mountains and racks of DVDs. It's like no one is ever going back to CDs. It's a relic from a different era, and that era used to define the middle class, and it just flat out no longer does. Period. Next. The next thing that used to define the middle class but no longer does is a matching furniture set. So this is one of those things that's also kind of funny because back in the day, literally you would have a love seat, you would have the matching sofa, you would have, I mean, literally your living room had a complete matching set. Then you had the big TVs with the cathode ray tubes that had the actual frame built around it and everything with the king studs and the jack studs and everything literally built into it. So the entire living room set used to match. And it used to define the middle class. I always personally thought I was kind of dumb because I was like, this is expensive, and as you start moving from apartment to apartment to apartment or house to house to house, things just break. So my generation, us millennials, us Gen Zers, we got rid of all of that. Nowadays, our matching furniture set is whatever we can buy from IKEA. It might last 3 moves if you buy good furniture, if you take care of your stuff, maybe longer than that. But we don't really do matching furniture sets anymore as millennials and as Gen Zers. And to some extent, that may not be a bad thing because at the end of the day, it's actually over the long haul saves you money because you buy good quality but inexpensive furniture that can actually fit up and down the flights of stairs that you may live in, that can actually fit in the elevators. Because a lot of that old school furniture could not fit in the elevators. If you don't believe me, try to move a king couch or a king size bed. Good luck. So I do think that there is a financial component to the fact that my generation, we no longer buy the kind of furniture that our parents and our grandparents bought. I think there is a financial component to that actually does actually make a lot of sense. And it's like anything. Me and my wife have a couch that we have had for roughly 7 years. I actually had it when we were dating, and we still have it today. So a lot of the things that you can essentially own, depending on if you take good care of it, obviously it's going to last longer. But that's something that used to define the American middle class. And to keep it real with you, it really just not anymore. So the financial takeaway that I get from that is that not everything that is moving forward is more expensive, and there are certain things that our parents and our grandparents used to do that just don't really make a lot of sense anymore. And there's nothing wrong with that. So yeah. Next, another thing that used to define the American middle class, and this one I've kind of went back and forth about because does it define the American middle class or does it not define the American middle class? I think it kind of just depends more or less where you start. It depends kind of where you are in your career. So by all means, everybody, continue asking questions, fire them away. I'm thoroughly enjoying answering any financial question that you have. So something else that used to define the American middle class but no longer does is stay-at-home parents. Like I said, I went kind of back and forth about this one because it really does kind of truly depend on the individual and it depends on the family. So back in the days, I said with my grandparents' generation, my grandfather was able to raise 7 kids have roughly 2 or 3 cars their entire adult life, um, on one income, my grandfather's income, and my grandmother, and they also owned a home that had that had 4 bedrooms, on one income. Nowadays, if you live in the American Midwest with raising 7 kids, and you have roughly 2 to 3 cars your entire adult life, and you have a paid off 4 bedroom house, you would probably and be comfortable. You would probably need to make about $400,000, about $300,000 a year. I'll say 350. 7 kids, college funds, everything like that. The amount of jobs that actually pay salary $350,000 are very few. Medical doctors, lawyers, some engineers, entrepreneurs. That's about it, right? So the concept of a stay-at-home parent kind of changed when when employers stopped basically paying people the kinds of wages that allowed them to stay with inflation. So as inflation went up and the cost of living went up, wages pretty much stagnated. And what ended up happening was the mother had to enter, or the father in some cases, had to basically enter the workforce and essentially start working. Now, what that did was it did a couple different things that kind of completely transformed the American middle class. As a result of that, how many people do you know that are in the middle class have one stay-at-home parent? I'm not talking about the upper middle class. I'm not talking about people that make over $150,000 a year. I'm talking about individuals with a household income of less than $80,000 a year. How many of them do you know that basically essentially only have one income? Not a good or a bad thing. I think to some extent it's good if you have one parent that can kind of stay home and teach your kids the family values and things of that nature, but it's pretty much a dying breed. And that is an unfortunate aspect, I would say, that does no longer define the American middle class, because I can't imagine. My father used to tell me that when he was a little kid, if he did something stupid down the street, he would have about 4 or 5 mothers scream at the window, "I'm gonna tell Joe, I'm gonna tell Geneva what you're doing." And by the time he got home, he'd already gotten like 2 or 3 spankings of some of the mothers of the kids he was hanging out with before he got home. Why? Because the mothers weren't, they were stay-at-home moms. And the fathers were like working in a factory or working in Chrysler, or they're in the US military. So because of that, I think the communities were a lot more together when there were more stay-at-home parents. But once again, like a lot of other things on this list, that's not coming back, people. I just don't see that being the case. Whether it's a good or bad thing, it kind of depends on how you fly. I do think it's a very good thing that women have been allowed to enter the workforce. So let's keep it real with you. A lot of reasons why our grandmothers did not enter the workforce was because they just flat out were not allowed to. But or the kind of jobs that they could get, they got fired the day they got pregnant, or they started showing, or the American market was a lot more sexist as a result of that. They were being vastly underpaid compared to what they were doing compared to the men. So I do think that is a good thing that women have been able to enter the workforce. But on some level, I am a little sad, because I do think that when you had stay-at-home parents, both fathers and mothers, I think our societies are a little bit more closer. But that's something that used to define the American middle class, but no longer does. And it's one of those kind of things where I kind of wish it's something that could come back, but I don't think it will. And secondly, I will also say this as well. To the individuals who can afford to have their wives stay home, or the women who can afford to have their husbands stay home because they make so much money, don't ever let anyone kind of look down on your spouse. And if you are a stay-at-home mom or dad, guess what? There's nothing wrong with that. A lot of people, for lack of a better word, particularly in my generation, unfortunately, they crap on the stay-at-home mom, they crap on the stay-at-home dad, and that's absolute nonsense. If you are essentially staying at home, and you're basically, if you have kids, you are essentially teaching them right from wrong. You're teaching them family values. You're homeschooling them. You're basically showing you're running a business, stuff like that from the side. People can kick rocks or whatever they think about you. Who cares? But unfortunately, I do find that a lot of stay-at-home moms in particular, they catch a lot of heat from women who do work, and I find a lot of stay-at-home dads, they catch a lot of heat, especially from guys at work. And my whole opinion about it is that if you marry somebody and they allow you to basically stay at home and to raise the kids, there's nothing to be ashamed of, period. In fact, a lot of women that do low-key hate on you, they wish they married a husband who could do that for them. A lot of guys that hate on you, they wish they had married a woman who could give you that option as well. So it's one of those things, I guess. It's one of those things. But yeah, stay-at-home parents at one point used to define the American middle class, and they no longer do. And who knows? Maybe they'll come back one day. Maybe it won't. Given the way tariffs are going, given the way inflation is going, I highly doubt it's ever coming back. But hey, you never know. You never know. Yep. All right, everybody. Once again, it's your boy Chris. Please fire away any questions that you guys may or may not have, because I'm all ears. For this particular live session, I was sitting back just thinking, I was like, okay, what's something that used to define the American middle class that no longer does, or something that used to define America in general that's just no longer present, that we used to put so much emphasis on? And that was something that I would say that there are a lot of different factors, but I kind of wanted to talk about that. And lastly, the last thing I want to say that used to define the American middle class and no longer does is this: buying a new car every couple of years. So this one I actually have seen people still kind of to some extent try to do, but it's so dumb because if you got a car that looks decent, it gets you from point A to point B, it's safe to be in, and essentially you have no car payment on it. Do you realize from a financial perspective how much money and wealth you can generate? Give you an example, right? Let's say you have a car note that's $700, right? Let's say you pay that car off, and you spend the next 10 years with no car payment, and you take that same $700 and you invest it into the stock market, or you invest it into a REIT, or you basically start a business and you take that money and you invest it in something that's an appreciating asset. Do you realize how much wealth you can build investing $700 into an index fund, into a REIT, or to an ETF that returns about 12% every year for 10 years? So the fact that at one point it was literally standard operating procedure and standard practice in the American middle class to buy a brand new car every 3 years, and to do that roughly for 10 or 15 years of your life, for 10 or 15 periods of life, so basically 30 to 45 years, is absolutely asinine and crazy to me. And it's even dumber because people still do that today. So thank God, I'm thinking that people, hopefully because of channels like mine and other financial content creators like that are out here, are essentially pushing the narrative that once you have a paid off car, literally drive that thing until the wheels fall off. If you're feeling gully, you want to actually kind of quote unquote upgrade your car, get a brand new car, perfect. Spend $5,000 and get it repainted. Paint that black car red, or paint that red car yellow, or whatever it is that you're into. But buying a brand new car every 2 or 3 years is literally one of the dumbest things that anybody can do. And that is something that at one point actually used to define the American middle class, and thankfully it no longer does. Got you. Once again, please hit that super chat button. Please support your boy. Once again, my cash app is $CHRIS. And by all means, everybody, please fire your questions away. Fire your questions away. That's a great strategy. Appreciate it, Jay. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you. Fire the questions away, everybody. I absolutely love talking to my listeners and everything before I get off. So ask away. Ask away. Anybody got them? Let me know. Let me know. So yeah. The American middle class, the American middle class. Unfortunately, today I find it's actually dwindling a lot. The good thing I will say is this: for what I'm kind of noticing, no matter what your socioeconomic status is, if you make, if you spend less money than you make, if you have very little high interest debt, and your mindset is a growth mindset, i.e., you're figuring out ways to make more money, you're figuring out ways to spend less money, you're figuring out ways to aggressively pay off your debt. No matter what income you make in America, you can actually and you're interested lastly in increasing your financial value so you can make more money. No matter what financial value you're at, you're going to basically be able to move into the American middle class and then ultimately into the upper class and then ultimately into the wealth class. So what do I mean by that? If you own a lot of debt right now, let's say you have a bunch of credit card debt, you need to be as aggressive as humanly possible about paying that thing off. If that requires you doing Uber Eats, if that requires you driving Lyft, driving Uber, if that requires you getting a second job, be as aggressive as possible about paying off that debt. And a good example I use is this. Let's say you are living up. Let's say you are looking for apartments, right? One apartment looks nice, costs $2,000 a month. Another apartment looks much nicer, costs $2,500 a month. Now you can afford the one that costs $2,500 a month, but you know what? But you tell yourself, you know what? I can afford that, but it'd be smarter for me to get this average looking $2,000 a month apartment and everything, and take the extra $500 a month and just throw it toward debt, or better yet, throw it towards an investment. I promise you, if that is your mindset, as far as living beneath your means and then investing the rest of your money or paying off your debts, you are not going to be poor for very long. Secondly, if you're in a situation where, quote unquote, you're making $35,000 or $40,000 a year, people, this is America. Retool, upgrade, get that certification. You don't got to go to college. Get a certification that pays you more money, because those things do exist. Learn a trade. Trade schools are free. They typically pay you. They actually pay you to learn the trade, and they pay very well. They pay very well. If you do gotta go to college, once again, get a college degree in a 21st century major that you know is gonna make you more money. So cut your spending, pay off all high interest debt, restock your bag essentially, in that you need to essentially get certification or degree is gonna pay you more money, and then continue to invest your money into the stock market and do this continually for decades. And I promise you, I don't care how little money you make, whether you live in the hood, the trailer parks, the projects, it does not matter. Eventually, you're going to start seeing gains. And all the people who laugh at you, hate on you because of where you live or the car that you drive and stuff like that, at some point, they're going to start asking for money and apologizing. I've seen it in my life. I've seen it in my own personal life. So no matter where you are, quote unquote, you're on a financial journey, the American middle class, there are certain things that used to define that are disappearing, but there are certain things that always stand the test of time. And those things are the ones that I just said I'm talking about, okay? So that everybody, please ask your questions. If not, your boy, I'm about to head out. Ask your questions, ask your questions. Please hit that super chat. Do you suggest starting a service or product business? I suggest doing what you're passionate about and what you essentially find a pain point in. So what I mean by that, it makes no sense to start a business essentially about a horse and buggy carriage business trying to take people from city to city. Why? Because there is no pain point. No one gives a crap about using horses anymore to go from city to city to city. But you know what? At some point, somebody realized, you know what? It would be a good idea if I had a business that essentially people could just call somebody on their phone and a car would automatically come up, pick them up, and take them wherever they wanted to go. That was Uber. At some point, somebody realized, you know what? It would be really cool if I figured out how to create a service where I could be sitting at home, hit one button on my phone, and people would bring food to me. That was Uber Eats. So essentially, those are all pain found a pain point. Somebody said, I wish this existed, and they figured out what to create it. So when it comes to your businesses and everything, I say the same thing. Figure out what the pain points are, and with that pain point, figure out a way to fix it, whether that's a service or whether that's a product. I personally have both. I have service products such as my financial consultant, such as my scholarship book, Scholarships, the Golden Road to Free Money, that can be purchased on Amazon, where if you want to send your kids to college for free, I obtained over $300,000 to go to undergrad for free and to get my engineering degree. And by doing that, that was a product that I created very clearly. So that was a product business. I also have a service business, the God. So if you want to book a one-on-one session with me, what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically spend about 7 to 10 minutes asking you a certain amount of questions. Okay, financially, what are you trying to build? What are your goals? What are you trying to look for? Are you interested in this? Are you interested in this? Are you interested in this? And based on that free 7 to 10 minute conversation, I'm going to be able to put together a financial package for you and say, all right, cool. Based off what you're telling me, I can book a one-on-one session with you for this, and this. And then from there, me and you will wrap essentially. Now I'll basically teach you how to build generational wealth, and how I will teach you how to become rich. That is the service portion of finances. That is the service portion of Financipation. So I have my product portion, which right now is my scholarship book, and I'm going to be releasing a master course very soon, where you basically buy my master course. I'm essentially talking to you for about 6 hours, for about 46 hours essentially, on giving you the game as far as how to build wealth in America. That's gonna be another product business that I'm pushing. But my service business as well are my financial one-on-ones. So great question, great question. So if you ask me what should you do, I'm gonna tell you do both. That's what I did. But whatever you do, make sure it's something that you're passionate about, and make sure it's addressing a need or addressing a pain point. Okay. Any other question? Anybody else? Questions, the guy, Jay, I appreciate it. Everybody, please subscribe. Please hit that super chat. Please subscribe to the channel as well. Please hit the super chat. Please support the Feed the Family Foundation, i.e. my family. And on top of that, everybody, please hit my cash app is $Chris P485. That's CHRIS P485. Keep the questions coming, everybody. Keep the questions coming. Keep them coming. Keep them coming. Another dope thing too I like about Financipation, something that's been really pretty cool to do, is that find a business, and this is my business, obviously one of them. Find a business that you actually are doing that brings value to the real world. A lot of times people have these fancy slogans, and they want to have these really elaborate business plans, and they want to do all this AI and stuff like that. But they lose track of the fact that you have to actually provide value to human beings. And one of the things that you should do as well, in addition to starting a business, is make sure that your business is doing just that. It is something that if a person comes to you, they leave better than they were when they got to you. Make sure if it's a girl, she feels better after she leaves than when she came to you. Make sure if it's a guy, the guy got value from the conversation that you were having with and from the product that he bought. Because nothing is worse than buying something that you think you're gonna get essentially a steak, and you walk away feeling like you ate a salad. That's the analogy that I'll use. So make sure that whatever business that you start, people leave better than they were than when they got there. Okay. All right. Well, once going twice, everybody. Any other questions you guys want to ask me before I bounce? Before I get off this chat? This particular podcast, in this particular live session, I want to go a little different. We always talk about like different ways to build wealth. I want to talk about different ways. How do you work on your mindset? I work on my mindset a couple different ways. First of all, I read books. So I'm a big believer that mental strength is one of those kind of things that's just kind of lost in our society today. So books like paying a mentor to come into your world and to teach you essentially how to be a man if you're a man, how to be a woman if you're a woman. So I read books like The Dichotomy of Leadership that was written by Jocko Willink and Leif Babin. I read books like Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink, who's a retired U.S. Navy SEAL. I read books like Can't Hurt Me and Never Finish by David Goggins because it teaches you essentially how if you're at this level physically, mentally, you can go mentally. If you're strong enough, you can take your physical and your mental attributes to this level. That's how I improve my mindset. Additionally, I also read books such as scholarships, The Golden Road to Free Money, on how to basically send your kids to college for free. I read books like the Richest Man in Babylon because it teaches you financially from a very simple, almost parable kind of standpoint about how to build wealth. I read books like how to win friends and influence people because it teaches you how to get people to like you regardless of what you look like and regardless of where you're from. So that's how I improve my personal mindset. I read books. Another thing too is that another way I improve my personal mindset is that you have to. There's a physical component to everything in life. So you can be a slob that reads a bunch of books, but physically, if you look like crap, most women's love language is a man's body. I'm just keeping it real with you. So as a result of that, if your body is in shape and your mind is in shape, everything else kind of follows it. 90% of a man's problems in a first world country can be fixed by taking care of his body, i.e., working out on a consistent basis. I would say 4 to 5 times a week, and basically taking care of his mind and working hard. If you do those three things, essentially, you're for the most part, 90% of your problems are good to go. You take care of your body, you take care of your mind, and you work hard. So another way to improve your mindset is take care of your body, work out. Every morning I work out. Every morning I basically do strength conditioning, I do cardio, and as a result of that, that discipline to do that essentially goes over to other areas of my life, such as me being an entrepreneur, such as my corporate America career, and things like that. So that's how I personally work on my mindset. The guides. Thanks for the questions, by the way, man. Shout out to you because you're always sending me great questions. I appreciate that. So yeah, before I bounce, any other questions you guys want to ask me? It's getting a little later. Thank you, Esther Paul, for the super chat. I appreciate that. It definitely helps the foundation, helps the family. Appreciate that. Thank you. All right, everybody, going once, going twice. Any other questions y'all want to fire my way? Financial, mindset, anything, physical. Another thing too about improving your mindset. Have you ever been in a rut, and how did you get out of it? Absolutely, we've all been in ruts. One thing about getting out of a rut is this: one, take care of your body. Your physical body, when you work out, it releases endorphins that essentially allows you to become a better man or a better woman. So that's one thing. So work out. That's the first thing. Secondly, too, keep it kind of all in perspective. That's what I do. If you have ever been fired, it sucks. But you know what? You say, okay, this is how when I got fired last time. This is what I did. So now I'm fired. This time, this is what I'm gonna do. If you ever had your heart broke, your girl cheated on your ladies, your guy left you. Yeah, it sucks. I'm sure if that happens. But at the end of the day, say, okay, this is what happened last time. This is what happens. This how I got out of it. This is how I'm going to get out of it this time. That's how you get out of a rut. Another way you get out of a rut is this: surround yourself with quality human beings and quality people. If you a dude and you making it rain at the club every weekend and you basically popping bottles with different chicks and stuff like that, and you just doing dumb stuff, when you get into a rut, you know what? The individuals that you are surrounding yourself with, as soon as your money is gone, they're going to be gone. But if you're surrounding yourself with high quality, with classy females, with classy individuals, the individuals, when the bad times kind of come, they're going to be the ones picking you up. So surround yourself with quality people. Same thing, dudes. If you hang out with a bunch of losers that basically just there for the good times and not for the bad ones, the second your money and the party stop, those dudes are going to be gone as well. But if you surround yourself with quality men that have a spiritual compass, that are basically dating one woman, that are essentially about their books, about their finances, stuff like that. When the bad times in life happen, and they are going to happen, I don't care whether you're a man, woman, black, white, it's irrelevant. The bad times are going to happen to you in life. Good people, good men, good women, they're going to be the ones that pick you up. So that's how I personally get myself out of a rut. I surround myself with quality human beings. I stay on my purpose. I stay on my grind. And on top of that, I also take care of my body. So yeah, that's how I get it. That's how I got out of the God. Great questions too, by the way, bro. Great questions too, by the way. I appreciate it. Anybody else? Any other questions? Please support your boy. Super chat, please. $5, $10, $1. We take it all. My cash app as well is $ CHRISP485. Anyone else? Questions? Please send them my way. Please send them my way. Thank you to God. I appreciate that, man. Thank you, thank you. Shout out to the God. I appreciate that. That definitely helps, and definitely my family and I are appreciative of that. And Bob, thank you for the questions as well. Anyone else? Anyone else? I actually thoroughly enjoy the back and forth as well. It's something that I love as well about being a podcaster. It's really, really cool. I don't know. It's really kind of cool interacting with human beings. One of the things that I like about finance versus, say, like some of the nerdier aspects about engineering is that with finance, it's a lot more, to some extent, dynamic in that you're actually talking to another human being, asking them, how can I help you? And that's something I actually love about Financipation because that's what I'm doing on my channel, just in regards to people's mental strength and financial well being, obviously, sometimes the dating and the relationships for what it's worth. I thoroughly enjoyed kind of talking to people and just kind of getting them out of the bad places in their life. I've had a very interesting childhood. I've been at a very interesting life. I probably will delve more into that in future content. But one of the things I'll say about this is that if you let the bad times stop you, you're not going to be here for the good ones. So don't let that happen. And I like finance because I talk about so much more than just making a bunch of money. And I thoroughly enjoy helping people get through, quote unquote, the bad times of their life and teaching them essentially how to maximize and extend the good times of their life. Okay. Anybody else? I'm getting a little long. Anybody else? Any other questions, comments, concerns? Going once, going twice. All right. Appreciate it. Appreciate it. All right, everybody. It's your boy Chris. I'm out. Once again, if you want to support the channel, $ CHRISP485, or you can just hit that super chat down there. Support the channel. And it's your boy Chris. I'm out. Peace.